Hello everybody, Big Seven here, back for another SuperCoach AFL video. Just starting off with a bit of housekeeping. Hit 100 subs over last week, so I just want to thank everyone that has subscribed to the channel, that watches the video and enjoys it. It is pretty humbling to see the amount of people that are tuning in each week, so once again, thank you for doing that. So on to this week. I scored 2,186. Not a terrible score, but considering all of the carnage, having Sean Darcy over Tim English, it's a little bit disappointing. It results in a rank drop down to 521, so it's really a small drop, but it's a bit disappointing considering I could have dropped the hammer, gone a bit, made up some ground on the teams that are in front of me, but it is what it is. Over the course of the season, you're bound to make some mistakes, and it is what it is. So as in terms of my aspirations for the year, I know a few people that are very close to the top of the mountain that are sharp minds. I don't see myself chasing those guys down. Ambitious goal would be to aim for the top 11, get some cash and get a tracksuit. Top 100, probably a bit more realistic from this spot. Top 1,000, if I was outside there, I'd be very disappointed. It also marks a change in my mindset going forward. Again, I know the teams in front of me, they've probably got a little bit more cash in the bank, obviously got points on me, so I'm changing my mindset. I want to take a few more risks from here. I don't want to do dumb things like Captain Samson Ryan and, trade in your Tom Mitchell types. It does need to be a calculated risk kind of approach. But moving forward, I'm going to be aggressively trying to chase down those people in front of me. Without any further ado, let's get into the side and let's witness this plane crash that happened over the weekend. So my trades, I traded in Brayshaw, and who did I even trade in? Who did I trade out? I traded out Ashcroft and Tyler Young to Brayshaw and Drury. Ashcroft, it was a toss-up between him and Hopper, but realistically, I was going to trade out one of them last week and one of them this week anyway. I thought Hopper was a better chance of outscoring his break-even. Wasn't to be the case. And the other one I was tossing up trading out is Alwyn Davey compared to Tyler Young. But Alwyn Davey named in the 22. No reason to trade him out. Thought he could be a slow burn. Yes, this is foreshadowing for some of the carnage that you are about to see. The players I traded in, Brayshaw, it was a decision between Brayshaw and Mills really for me. Decided to go Brayshaw with a view to bring in Mills in this week. Obviously for Mills owners and people that traded him in, very unlucky. Just goes to show the kind of snowball effect that this game can have, So now that Mills is out, I have to adjust my trade plans, but it's worth if you brought him in. If you brought him in, then you have to sideways trade him out. If you don't have a boost, then you're down an upgrade. Mills has also lost, I think, about 50k, so he loses cash. So yeah, the snowball butterfly effect, it's a very big part. I think we underrate the amount of luck that's involved in this game. I have been on the right side of it for the most part, but I've also copped my fair share. Trading in Took, is that showing? Yeah, so trading in, yeah, so some of these trade-ins, traded Warple out the week before Will Day got suspended, so he had a bit of a better midfield role. Traded in Oliver, and the next week he got the flu, underperformed then, dropped in price from that. Took Miller, got injured the week I brought him in. Obviously decided to trade at LDU at a okay time. And then Zach Merritt, I'll talk about him a bit later. So some of these premium trades, they're just missing a bit of that good timing, unfortunately. But again, it is what it is. I haven't copped any of the real bad stuff like Mills, even getting rid of Doherty earlier in the year. It's left me in fairly good stead. So I'll take the 500 rank, knowing that things could be better, but they also could be worse. All right, let's jump into the side. I'm not going to go through every player one by one. There's no real need for that. I will talk about the rookie fielding fiasco. So, a plane crash, there's never really one reason why a plane falls out of the sky. There's always a number of contributing factors, and I feel like this week pretty much epitomizes that for my side. So it starts off last week. Rowan Marshall in doubt. Rowan Marshall not subbed out, but spent the majority of the fourth quarter last week off the ground. So I decided, with that game being 2 days before the Richmond game, I'll play safe. I'll put Samson Ryan in my ruck 3 position. Would have preferred to field him, but I figure, what would I rather? I thought Samson Ryan would probably score about an 80 odd, or McKenna, who I thought would score a 60 odd. I'll take the 20-point hit approximate hit if Rowan Marshall does get up. I was going to be more annoyed if I decided to be greedy, try and chase what I thought would be a 20-point swing, and then end up with a donut at R2. So that also meant Samson Ryan in the ruck 3 position, Matt Johnson as my only donut in the midfield line. And with Fremantle playing on the Saturday, it meant that I was able to loophole Jacob Hopper, which looked like a genius move on the Friday night. Obviously, didn't want to see him get injured. I would have preferred him to play, get his cash, etc. But loopholing him looked like a genius decision at that point in time. I had a choice between loopholing Drury and Davey. I saw Drury's score on the Saturday, and I was very content that I didn't take the 17 over the 43. And then Brad Scott happens. And Brad Scott's baked my team, so I think it's time for me to bake Brad Scott. Alwyn Davey, why would you name him in the 22 to put him in the sub-vest? The player that brought him in, it wasn't even like they brought in a tall or anything special like that. It was just Massimo D'Ambrosio, a defender. You've already got Mason Redmond. You've already got Nick Hind. You've already got McGrath. You've got Heppel. How many rebounding defenders do you need? And then in addition to that, your team kicks 6 goals over the course of the game. I don't understand how you can take Alwyn Davey out of that 22. I would have thought he played over Menzie, even still. It's just another shocking decision from Brad Scott. I can only describe him as a fraud coach. Zach Merritt gets suspended round 5. Round 6, they obviously lose the Pies. And then he's suddenly not part of your best midfield. And look at these centre bounces. Look at them. 38% against Geelong, absolutely smashed in the clearances. Was back to somewhat normality last week. And then against Port Adelaide. And then against Brisbane, he's getting less CBAs than Caldwell and Shield when their other top line midfielder, Darcy Parish, is out of the side. How are you playing your clear best midfielder, only 62% of CBAs, getting some midfield and wing time when he's your best midfielder? I don't understand what Brad Scott's problem is. I think it's some kind of issue in the brain department. And ever since the tinkering started happening, they were settled over the first 5 rounds. What did they go? 4-1 over that period or something like that? And now they've gone 0-4. So it's been an absolute masterclass from Brad Scott. And all I got to say is, if you wanted to tinker around doing things that AFL fans hate, then he should have stayed in his cushy AFL job rather than going to Essendon and letting down an entire supporter base. So my condolences go out to the Essendon supporters who, it looks like another false dawn with another fraudulent coach. While I'm baking people, Connor McKenna, briefly mentioned him before. I expected not greatness, but I expected a lot better from him with Daniel Rich out of the side. Daniel Rich going out of the side meant that he becomes the general of that defense. He should be taking kickouts, which he is, except half the time he's not playing on out of the square. I mean, what? I know he's Irish, but he's played this game long enough to know that you need to be playing on out of kick-ins to get those cheap touches. And just watching him play, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Brisbane over the last couple of weeks, but the parts that I have seen, it just seems to be McKenna playing that general role where he's happy to spend half the game pointing out spaces where players need to go, things that Daniel Rich would have done. But Daniel Rich actually spends the other half of his game getting cheapies, whereas McKenna, he just seems to be content walking around, letting his teammates do the rest of the work, getting all the cheap stuff. So Connor McKenna, you're gone. I've had enough of you. And it's just a regretful decision holding him in my side. Who else let me down? Chincotta, 33. I mean, he's a rookie. Been okay up until last week. We'll forgive him. And Jack Sinclair, just not really too sure if this was the trade-in to make a couple of weeks ago. At the moment, probably looking at more like a mistake on my side rather than anything I can bake him over particularly. And I just don't think St Kilda are really looking towards Sinclair as much as they were last year. Using Wanganeen Miller a bit more, which was kind of my reason for not picking him at the start of the season. And I brought him in anyway. So that's probably a mistake on my part. Captaincy this week, or last week, it was Clayton Oliver, 119 with the vice captain. And again, I wanted to really drop the hammer on people, especially after seeing Bontempelli only go 112. So I went for Jordan Dawson, and on a normal Jordan Dawson day, he goes 130, 140. Just his efficiency by foot let him down. A lot of handballs as well. 89, very much a downgrade game from Dawson, but look, it could have been 140 on another day. It is what it is. Dawson's been a GOAT for me this year, so he avoids the bake. All right, so what do I want to do going forward? Actually, I brought in Brayshaw as well. He only scored 88. Actually, I did mention him before. So how do I want to play going forward? I've got two really clear trade-outs. If we look at the break-evens, McKenna's at 88 break-even. He looks lucky to get 50 at the moment if he avoids getting dropped. Jacob Hopper out for an extended period of time. So it's pretty obvious that those two need to go out. And it's going to be interesting in terms of rookies because I brought in Drury early. I wasn't really sold on Weddle. Weddle actually did okay over the weekend. But I also wanted that extra 30K that Drury provided. So I'll get rid of McKenna, get rid of Hopper. And in terms of rookies, there isn't really a lot this week. If I go to rookies that are under 150 or under, obviously don't have forwards in here, but I don't see any forward options that are worthwhile getting. Jack Bartel, he interests me if Jack Steele is out for an extended period of time. Apparently, I think he's getting scans on his medial ligament. So Bartel, if he can secure his spot in the 22 at 116k, he's a decent Supercoach scorer. They've got Windhager though, so it's probably one of those two that comes back into the side for Steele if he is indeed out. And it's probably a bit more speculative in terms of job security, because if Bartel plays next week, there's every chance that Windhager could play the week after. Will Gould, absolutely not. Harry Sharp, he scored well last week. Just need to see him hold his spot. And they've really only got one player that's out of their best 22 at the moment, and that's Daniel Rich. But they don't really have anyone obvious that could go out of the 22. Obviously, Sharp is one of those that could make way. It would be a bit stiff, but they don't really have many droppable players. McKenna's been poor, but maybe they're at his leadership. I don't know. He hasn't done much over the last couple of weeks, so maybe he can go. But yeah, Sharp, he's very much on the borderline of that best 22. A bit of a scary proposition. And other than that, there's really not much. And Sitas has been sub for Gold Coast a couple of times. Can't bring him in this week, though. Fleeton 47 on debut. Much rather wait another week. And really, there isn't a lot else. So if I do go for Sharp, it does give me the money to go for a top line premium. The ones that I am looking at, quite a few at the top of the list that I wouldn't mind getting. So in terms of defenders, Luke Ryan, I don't mind him, but the price looks to come down. It's about 139 break even, so I'll wait to get him at a later stage if I want him. Outside of him, no real defenders that I'm strongly considering. Yeah, Jake Lloyd 101, but he's just that consistent scorer. Don't see him going more than 105, so it's a fair price, but again, not someone I'm really champing at the bit to go for. The one that really does interest me is Adam Sard. He scored 100 pretty much the first, I think it was 5 weeks of the season, then got injured against Adelaide and didn't play last quarter. They didn't play last quarter against West Coast, and last week, I think it was full game time against Brisbane. So the break-even's 125. So it means I don't have to get him in this week. He's got around 15 bye, so that will be a deterrent for some people. So I only scored 90 against the Dogs, so he's someone I think can bounce back, but he's more a monitor rather than a get for me. So no defenders I really want to bring in this week. So I would have to be bringing in a midfielder. And there are quite a few near the top that I like the look of. Wouldn't be able to afford Petrarca. Sam Walsh, potentially getting forward status, like him at some stage. Sarong, I wrote him off earlier in the year as a fantasy pick. He's done enough now to get my faith. 600k, it's 100k more than you paid at the start of the year. Probably slightly overs, but still a solid pick. Anderson too expensive now. Josh Kelly, actually don't mind him. And that's pretty much it for pure midfielders. There is a guy that I am pretty hot on though, and this is kind of going back to this whole risk-taking mindset. And Josh Kelly is only 4.6% owned, so he would be a nice pot option. But the player I want to get is a forward, and his name is Bailey Smith. So looking at his scoring over the last few weeks, it's been pretty consistent hundreds. And he does have the scoring power to be a top six forward, even with all of the DPP additions. So yeah, last 3 weeks he's gone 100, 102 against Brisbane, 69 against Richmond. Missed a couple of games with injury, and that's really the big risk with Bailey Smith. He is pretty injury prone, done a number of hamstrings, but there's one thing I saw that looked very attractive to me, and that is the CBAs. And it's a very dangerous game to play looking at CBA numbers for the Western Bulldogs because in past seasons, they've tended to be all over the place. Bailey Smith, fairly low over the start of the season, 55% against Melbourne. He didn't score well in that game, but also had an interrupted preseason. So I'm considering a guy that's had an interrupted preseason, played 4 games, then been injured, and then last few weeks, 41% CBAs against Hawthorn. Nothing against the Bulldogs. Nothing against GWS. And then got a massive uptick last week against Carlton, 87%. And Adam Treloar goes out of the side, went out of that side injured. So the runway is set for Bailey Smith to continue to have a high amount of centre bounces. Jack Macrae obviously lost some last week, but has been around that 40% range. So there's every possibility that Macrae could go back up to 50%, Caleb Daniel 50%, and Bailey Smith 50%. Could also see Caleb Daniel lose some CBAs for Macrae to get his back, though. So it is a dangerous game to play, just going off the CBA numbers. I do think Bailey Smith can score well enough only on 40% CBAs. I think he can go somewhere around 105, all things going right, if he does get somewhere around 40 to 50% CBAs for the rest of the year. I think if he gets somewhere between 70 and 80% CBAs, he can be a 115, 120 guy. The ceiling is quite high, but so is the risk. And at this point of the season, it is a fairly substantial risk to be taken. Adam Treloar will come back into the side at some point. But in 2021, and yes, it's going back 2 years, Adam Treloar did get a fair amount of midfield time. I do think it's somewhat comparable to now because, and they had Dunkley in the side, but he was injured through the period I'm about to talk about. Adam Treloar got a lot of midfield time and then it dropped off, got injured. And that was around about the time Bailey Smith started getting CBAs in 2021. So, look, it's a speculative pick. The time to jump on him is now because he's got a break-even of 80. So if I'm anticipating him getting 80% CBAs and going 120, then if I miss him this week, then he's 20K more expensive. And it just gets more and more expensive. And he's someone that a lot of teams, and only 451 people trading him in at this stage, 2% owned. I'm ready to take a risk. I'm ready to be burnt. It is what it is. And so if I get in Bailey Smith, I'll show you what that does. So take out the player profile. So that'll give me 146K. And looking at this team, who do I want to trade out next week? Because when I'm making trades, I want to try and think forward. Samson Ryan, break even of 12, but so 340K, so maybe goes up another 30K. But Toby Nankervis is close to being fit again, listed as a test this week. So there's every chance Nankervis plays this week and Samson Ryan is back to a second ruck role where he won't score as well as he has over the last couple of weeks. Not sure what the deal with Soldo is. I think the ideal lineup for Richmond would be Nankervis first ruck and Samson Ryan as a relief ruck with Soldo in the twos. But if Nankervis isn't right for this week, then maybe Soldo gets a recall in the ones anyway, and Samson is the second ruck, potentially. Either way, Samson Ryan, his time is close to being done. But who else is there that I really want to trade out? Seamus Mitchell, he's got more cash to be made. Alwyn Davey, I'd have to trade him out next week. But with a break even of 73, there's every chance that he loses money. And do I really want to be trading out a 175, 180k playing rookie? I do think if Davey gets some game time back, then he can be a slow burn. He can have that second wind, maybe get up to a 250k. Sam Simpson, I want him over the bye rounds. Chincotta, I'll back to bounce back. So I don't really have any obvious trade targets, and this would allow me to get Samson Ryan up to someone that's around about 500k next week, maybe a Sard type, like I was talking about earlier. But it also gives me the flexibility of going for one of those 600k blokes next week if I wanted to trade out a Chincotta or maybe even a Matt Johnson if he doesn't return or something like that. But yeah, Sharp, he's the one that's the big question mark. So basically, what I need to decide going into this buy planner. So if I will go Hopper and Smith and then McKenna and Sharp, am I able to get, say, I've got a Laird here as a placeholder, who's probably my preferred option at the moment. If I keep that money in the bank, maybe I can afford a Laird next week compared to if I go for Bailey Humphrey. And I think I'm going to be tossing up between Sharp and Humphrey for the rest of the week, I'm pretty sure. And I'm still not sure whether Humphrey is a trap or not. I think, so if I bring up the profile. So he's 213k. So he's 90. He takes 90k away from my upgrades next week. What he does have is a lot more job security than Harry Sharp or Thomas Berry, who I didn't even mention because I think he'll be dropped. Even a Fleeton. I think he's the rookie with the most job security, but you're paying a big premium to get him. The things that work in his favor, 117 last week, so the break even is very low. So the break even is negative 59. So even if he goes, looking at the projections, he goes 52, 52, it's an 80k price rise. So he really should be making 80k from here. I don't think but yeah, if you look at his scores, he's got a -3 against Richmond. So St Kilda was a full game. I think Fremantle, he got subbed off. North Melbourne, he was the sub, and Richmond, he was subbed off. But realistically, if you're playing bad enough to get subbed off, then they shouldn't be games that you exclude out of your rationale. So really, 38 -3, 64, 117. The 117 coming up against a fairly substandard West Coast team. So definitely not expecting that going forward. What do I hope for? I'd probably be hoping for somewhere between 60 and 65. And he scored a 64 against Melbourne. And the reason I'm leaning towards him at the moment, um, I watched a video from him earlier. I think it was released yesterday. He obviously won the Rising Star last week, did an interview on the AFL website. And in that interview, he mentioned that the first few games, up until the last 2 weeks, he had been suffering with cramping in games. He's made changes to his diet. And, it's started to click for him. So maybe I'm hoping he can go 60, 65 from here. The other thing that's a really good thing is he has that round 13 bye. So he would be good coverage over the rest of those buys. So I am kind of leaning towards Humphrey at this stage, but it's really a toss up. Do I pick the player that's a better rookie and handcuff my upgrade next week? Or do I pick the rookie with what I perceive to be worse job security, but that gives me the flexibility to upgrade to someone more, someone more solid, someone that'll score better as a premium option. So this is the dilemma I'm facing at the moment. I think I am pretty set on Bailey Smith. Obviously, a big risk to be taking, but I think the reward is substantial enough to justify taking that risk. So I'll complete those trades. So that gets me down to 3 rookies on field. So it gets me down to 3 rookies on field. I haven't looked at how I'm going to loophole yet. So if I have Humphrey, so Johnson I'm expecting to be back, so can't loop in the midfield line. I think I would field Humphrey. And Chesser potentially back this week as well. It means I probably can't loop in defense either. So Chincotta against the Pies or Seamus Mitchell against West Coast. That's a bit of a toss-up. I'm not too sure who I would go for there. And then I would put Samson back. I don't think I need that ruck cover anymore. But Roberts, he plays early as well. So everyone plays early. Everyone plays on the Saturday. So I guess Friday. I don't see any loopholes I can do with this team, which is a little bit alarming. Port Adelaide and Melbourne on the Friday night. I could do what I did last week with Hopper and emergency loophole Connor Rozee, but I'm a little bit skittish after what I did last week. And then finally, to wrap things up, I guess I'll just look at my goals real quickly. So this is kind of what I'm trying to do as like a general plan. Short-term plan, I want to upgrade this week and next week. So Bailey Smith, and get someone in next week. After I do that, I'm planning on coasting through the first 2 weeks of buys. In terms of my buy structure, I've got 6 premiums from the first buy that aren't playing, 1 from the second buy, which is Stewart. The round 14 buy, I think I have 5. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so only 5 premiums in that round 14 buy. So I would like to get in Laird next week, but it's probably not possible now I've brought in Humphrey. And then, yeah, so round 12, I have Sinclair, Dunkley, Gordon, Brayshaw, and the two rucks. And round 15, that means that's a barren forward line. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 premiums that are out in round 15. So realistically, yeah, with my buys heavily backloaded, I mean, that's kind of how I want to be because I'll coast through the first 2 weeks and then I want to be aggressive in the last 2 weeks. I'll consider trading out Jack Zeeble, probably blasphemy for a lot of people considering what he did 2 weeks ago. But if he's 600k and I can sideways him to a premium that's playing and get 50k cash out of that, then I think I'd be stupid not to do it. Sheasel, he's someone I plan on sidewaysing at that round 15 buy as well. So coast through the first part, be aggressive at the back end, and then that should the long-term plan, which is round 16. I want to finish the team with 21 plus 2 or 22 premiums. The 21 plus 2 would be if I had to hold someone like a Sheasel and then bring in a cheaper player like a Mills or when he returns, or a McCluggage or Wines or someone like that to have as that 23rd premium. Or I can just finish the team with a strong 22 premium options, which is probably my preference at the moment. I think I'll be able to finish the team with 5 or 6 trades, even if I am sidewaysing Zeeble and Sheasel out of the side. So that's my plan going forward. And finally, we'll wrap it up with some captains. Port Adelaide, Melbourne on the Friday night. I'm going to go Clayton Oliver. Yes, I do want to be different, but Clayton Oliver, I think fading him is a little bit too different. He has a good record at Adelaide Oval. Captain is where I'm thinking about being a little bit different. So that means I won't go to Bont, I won't go Dawson, who both play each other, and it's a potentially hard matchup for themselves. Could go Tom Stewart, playing at Optus Stadium. I think he has a good record there, and I think he scored... What was it? It was 187 against Fremantle last matchup. I mean, I don't like to read into those things too much. I think he does have a decent record at Optus Stadium as well, though. So Stewart, he's an option. Errol Goulden, he's an option as well, playing against North Melbourne. And he's someone that could benefit from Mills being out as well. Back-to-back 150s last 2 weeks. He's a pod captain I'm thinking about. And Merritt could have been an option, but Brad Scott, I hate you. I'll just keep it. I'll keep it straight. I hate you at the moment. Go and fix your shit, and I'll love you again. And who else is there? Taranto, maybe a pod. Don't think he has a ceiling though. Sean Darcy up against Seglar. He's an option as well. I'm probably leaning towards Errol at this stage. Back in the form, soft matchup against North Melbourne. Yeah, that's how I'm leaning at the moment. And yeah, so this is how I expect to be lining up for next week, although I could have Sharp over Humphrey. That's pretty much the decision I'm tossing up at the moment. Hopefully no carnage throughout the week, because I haven't even had that much and I'm sick of the carnage. Just, hopefully we can all get a clean run from here on out. I know that's not going to be the case, but we can dream. And yeah, let me know how you guys are going in the comments section. I'll respond to your comments if you have any trade questions. And yeah, once again, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you for the next video.